I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, July the 20th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. Here on the regular Monday sale, they're going to start at 6 a.m. due to the heat, and expecting about 4,500 head. Mark Harmon told me that they will be on the yearlings by 8:30. So if you guys have plans to attend that sale or you want to watch online, go to dvauction.com or go to joplinstockyards.com to watch that. But good sale there in Joplin for Monday. Hot market, and of course the temperatures are hot, and we've been seeing the heat wave kind of roll across the cattle country. Luckily in the southern plains, the extreme heat was accompanied by some pretty decent winds, and keeping that air moving was good for those feedlot cattle, especially those big heavy ones that are backed up. And didn't hear any massive losses out there. As long as that air is moving, you're probably all right. Also, not necessarily delivered. The cattle aren't moving that much, but probably sold as many cattle last week as far as exchanging hands with them as any time during the year. With the big videos going on and a lot of cattle selling in the country and a lot of big receipts in some of your big sale barns, especially right there in the southern plains. But a lot of cattle moved last week, and like I said, it was a pretty hot market there. We talked yesterday as I was out in Reno, Nevada early last week, and talked about the program cattle and how, you know, we've never seen any more excitement about those programs. Your NHTC cattle, your all natural verified, your vaccination programs that have a third-party verification on them, your GAP4, your non-GMOs, even organic, all of them. I tell you what, and you just open yourself up for so many more buyers if you can do that. I know for you guys that are handling put together cattle for backgrounding, that doesn't work, but if you buy a set of cattle that have those programs, you can maintain those programs going forward. And of course, if you're keeping those cattle right through and you have the cows, you can sure do it too. But it's certainly something to look at, and it's not just a fad or anything. I believe it's here to stay. If you guys watched that Western video, let you know that we've got the big Northern livestock video starting here on Monday. It's running Monday through Thursday, the Summertime Classic. And then the following week after that, have the Video Royale, the Winnemucca sale with Superior, but they're likely to have that there at Fort Worth, close to the studios again, as we just cannot get under the cloud of this pandemic. And I tell you what, it has got everybody's kind of tempers at flare, I guess is what you could say. They're just tired of it. You know, it's summertime, people are outside doing things, and they, you know, keep wanting you to put a little something over your face like it's going to save everybody, and it's really ridiculous. And I think we're starting to find out how ridiculous it is, and people don't have any patience for it anymore. And instead of opening things up and getting out and getting some herd immunization, it just seems like we're getting worse and worse all the time. But if you guys listened to me talk last week, you know, we talked about how you know, we have seen the Packers come across with a little bit of response with the push on the 50-14 and the investigations and all that thing. We haven't heard any actual press releases from them or statements, but if you just watch and see what they do, you see the response. We've noted that we had some charity bids that come out after the worst of the gouging, because it was so evident what they had done out there. They started paying $1.20 for cattle when they didn't need to. They held that for a while, and then they kind of got tired of that. Now they backed it up under $1. We've been under $1 here for a few weeks, and now we're seeing them come across and talking to people that are wanting to grid their cattle like they have been in the past. Now, it's not a pre-negotiated formula deal, but it's a guy that has cattle in loose hands, but he wants to put them in on the grid because he feels like they're the kind of cattle that would yield more money coming back on it. But the Packers are now saying, nope, cash only. And you know, and they're saying, you guys want the cash? Here it is. You take the cash. But no, what we're pushing for is negotiated cash. The cash that the guys have been getting here of late is not negotiated. It's either take it or leave it. Everybody knows that we're backed up a bunch on cattle. The packers fully know it. They're going to stretch that out as long as they can. They're going to dangle it out there in front. They're not going to push too hard on up their chain speeds of the slaughter, and they're going to maintain this backlog of cattle as long as they possibly can. And now you've got it where there's no negotiation. You know, they bid you $95. You don't say, no, I think I want 97. You're glad to get the 95, and you with your hat in your hand, and you nod and lean over, you take that and you say thank you, and you hope you can get them scheduled as quick as you can. They may still make you hold them for a couple of weeks, but I tell you what, no negotiation. So cash with no negotiation, that doesn't really work. At some time, at some point, we're going to get back, and I think we're already starting to see fewer calves. The calf crop that we're starting to see is going to be lighter. It's likely going to have lighter numbers of feeder cattle as we move on through the end of this year and into next year. At some point, your cattle feeders are going to have the upper hand on the supply. There's going to be shorter supplies of them, and we're going to need negotiation. And at that point, I hope we have the 50-14 or the 30-14 or some level of minimum negotiated trade, and then we'll get to see your cattle feeders hold packers' feet to the fire as they try to fill their quota at each plant. And there's not as many fat cattle around as there has been as the last several years here, and boy, would we love to see it. If you guys watch Steve Stratford like I do, I tell you what, he does a good job with what he calls the Pratt Cattle Chat there at Pratt Livestock, and he was talking on his latest edition about the word premium and how the packers have used the word premium to just kind of dominate all your cattle feeders. And I tell you what, he really explained it well. And if you guys aren't listening to him, I think you need to. You can find him at Winter Livestock's Facebook page. I know that for sure. But he made note about how, you know, there's people that are feeding these cattle and raising them, you know, they're proud of them, and everybody likes to brag about how they plus the market, you know, oh, we plus the market. Well, if the market's not worth a shit to begin with, what's the big deal about plussing it? You know, the base price is what we're trying to help with this minimum negotiated trade. We're trying to help the base price for all these other formula people and for the grid people. And if you've got a weak base price to start off of, you know, how do you know how well you've done? You know, even if your cattle do come back a couple bucks better on your so-called premiums, you know, have you really done a good job marketing them, or would you rather have competitive bidding on those cattle? I think we know the answer to that. But let's talk about your futures for last week. August live cattle futures, Monday was down 35 cents, Tuesday down 85, Wednesday up $2.50. Wednesday was a banner day on the board. Thursday it was again. Thursday was up $1.97, Friday unchanged, with August live cattle futures ending the week at 103.27. That was up $3.27 for the week. Your fat cattle, cash fat cattle alive, were only up $1. August feeder cattle, or let's talk about October live cattle futures, we're at 106.87, up $2.30 for the week. Okay, August feeder cattle, Monday was up $1.30, Tuesday down 32, Wednesday up $2.70, and Thursday up $3.17 on feeder cattle, guys. And Friday up a dime, with your August feeder cattle ending the week at 142.70, up $6.95 for the week. Okay, your real-time index cash prices was only up $1.25 for last week, and your futures price for the nearby up almost $7. That's unbelievable. And you think, my gosh, that is huge. And then September's even more than that, up at 143.32, up $6. But let's look at that August feeder cattle. And you figure an 800-pound steer at 142.70, and it will actually pencil out, because if you guys haven't noticed, We're going all the way out to February for those fat cattle at $113.77 is where it ended the week, and April's almost $115 cash fat cattle. So if you take that 142.70, but that's based on an 800-pound steer, you likely are going to have a hard time finding flat 800-pound steers for 142.70. They're going to cost you a little more than that, but it's still an awful good price. But if you kind of put a pencil to that, they'll make money if you've got a hell of a cost of gain at 60 cents. If you don't, you're in the southern plains, you're having to haul your feed a long way, it may not. But the break-even's at about 75 cents on the gain, counting all your expenses. So it just depends on where you're at. Now in the northern plains, they're working with a corn basis of minus like 65 cents because the ethanol plants are closed. They're not getting the cheap ethanol feed out of there, the distillers' dried grains out of there, but they are getting the cheap corn. Now your guys in the southern plains, they kind of like those DDGs too, and now they're not seeing as much of those, and they're costing them more. Of course, they don't have the corn, so they're having to pay a plus basis to get that, and then that's kind of how it works. But the farmer feeders are sure ahead of the game right now. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade for last week through Thursday. Cash sales of 77,600 head, not negotiated cash sales, just cash sales. And live prices were from 94 to $1. It was mostly 94 to 97 in the south, a lot of 94, 95. And up north, it was 95 to $1. Your 96 and 7 in your southern plains was mostly reserved for the upper part of Kansas, because those cattle are going north because they're pretty current right now in the northern plains in Nebraska and Iowa and across there. But in the southern plains is when where we're seeing most of those backed up cattle. But your weighted average is near 97 through Thursday. We'll see what it ends up for the week, but that's about $1 higher for the week. Your dress sales range from 152 to 160, mostly 157 to 160, and that weighted average dressed steer price was 157 and a quarter through Thursday, and that was down about 50 cents compared to the previous week. Box beef cutout values, the weighted average on last week's trade, all of it, was down $3.29 at 201.24 on the weighted average of choice product. Your select cuts, 191.14. That was $4.55 lower than the weighted average on select from the previous week. We're down to typical movement. The pipeline's been filled, and now we're back to a normal week's movement of 733 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings for a current delivery. Your slaughter, 650,000. That was 7,000 through Thursday now, less than the previous week, and 5,000 less than the same week a year ago. Excuse me, that's for the whole week. 650,000, 7,000 less than the previous week, 5,000 less than the same week a year ago. We're down 5.6% now for the year-to-date cattle slaughter, and your total number of head that we're lacking here on compared to a year ago slaughter is 1,010,000 head. So you guys can think that they're not there. They're there somewhere, guys. We didn't have 1 million cattle die. I know some of these smaller little mom and pop packing plants might have took 1 or 2 head here, or maybe even a gooseneck load here and there, but we're still at best case scenario behind 700,000 to 800,000 head. And then you figure in the carcass weights. Your actual carcass weight for the weekend and 4th of July was 896 pounds on a dressed steer average. That's 35 pounds bigger than the same time a year ago. So that way more than makes up for what we may be less than, what I'm saying, a little over 1 million head there, because 35 pounds, it's all about pounds of product, guys, and we're still backed up big time, even though we're seeing a lot of people doubting that. But where could they have gone? Let's talk about your feeder cattle. Real-time index on DV auction ended the week at 135.44. That was up 126 for the week, and most of your best-selling yearlings were heavier than that. They were mostly weighing in the 9s, a lot of them. But 135.44 based on an 800-pound steer. Like I said, your nearby feeder cattle contract is about $7 higher than that. But more of the cattle going into the index were in the southern plains this past week than they were the previous week. There was more sales up in the northern plains, but that's why it wasn't up any more than that. It would have been up to $3 had we had more of those northern sales, more Nebraska sales and places like that. And then you figure your Western video cattle, a lot of those were nearby delivery, but they weren't quick enough to go into the index, even on your CME cash feeder cattle index. And we don't have any video cattle or direct cattle in your RTI. It's all cattle in your brick and mortar sales that are being competitively bid on. Cash feeder cattle in your auctions, $2 to $5 higher, especially on your 7 weights. And we aren't seeing a lot of those green lighter yearling 7 weights. It's mostly bigger calves already, but where you saw some 7-weight cattle, that's where the big gains were. That's what your farmer feeders, your northern guys are really wanting. They will put away a lot of corn, and they'll cheapen themselves up that way. And that's where everybody was really pushing, but and because there wasn't very many of them out there, mostly 8 and 9-weight cattle out there. But where they were found, the 7-weight cattle were the highest. Now our calves, we're starting to see a little more interest in some feeding calves, but your lighter weights to turn out, where it's kind of the wrong time to turn cattle out, guys. So we're not seeing a whole lot of push on that. But look at some individual quotes that we saw. Bluegrass Stockyards, Richmond, Kentucky on Friday sold 56 head, 926-pound steers, guys, in Kentucky at 130.10. Hell of a sale there. Then a guy sent me some quotes there from a board sale at Farmers Livestock, Greenville, Tennessee on Saturday. The Whispering Pines Farm sold a load of 925-pound steers. They were just on grass. They were getting 2.5 pounds of commodity feed every other day, and those cattle were all black, bring 131.25, and the slide was only a 6-cent slide there, guys. So that was a heck of a sale out there in eastern Tennessee. How about Mankato Livestock? 132 head of backgrounded, not green grass, 132 head of backgrounded 798-pound steers bring 142.35. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.